Okay, so the time has finally come, and today we're going to be talking about Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. I've been playing it for PC for, I would probably say, around 2 weeks or so. And to be quite honest with you guys, like just saying this off the top of my head, this game is actually pretty freaking good. So if you do come across it, or if it's ever on sale, it's definitely something I would recommend that you pick up as soon as you possibly could. In other words, let's get down to it. Okay, so I kind of want to talk about like what this game is about, and indeed it's definitely a retelling of the OG anime Dragon Ball Z. The open world part of it is actually amazing and surprisingly really fun. It's interesting to wander around the open world, none other than Goku and the rest of his friends. The game starts off as you expected, around a Radix kidnapping of Gohan and so forth. The open world controls are admittedly kind of strange at first, but once you start playing for a while, you'll slowly kind of get the hang of it. There are these currency that are in the open world called Z orbs, which you can collect to upgrade certain skills and attacks in the game. Fighting the open world enemies all like RPG style really does kind of put a twist to a Dragon Ball Z game that we've never seen before. This game is something that the anime fans have wanted for such a long time. With the cinematic spice that the game has to it and stunning graphics and artwork, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is something that I'd recommend if you're a fan of the series or experiencing it for the very first time. Within the first 5 hours of the game, I was able to really adjust to the controls of the open world and also the combat as well. What I really like about this game a lot is that you really get a better perspective of the characters and how they go about the different adventures that they take. You sort of play some main story stuff, fight through some mini bosses that are related to the story arc, fight and explore through the area, and then face off against the final boss. The gameplay evens out the story by throwing you some small filler quests that evens out right after you defeat the final boss. There are various enemies that have like a red glowing aura to them. These enemies are hard to defeat, but they do help you in the process of leveling up. In the open world, there are various materials throughout the land that you can use to cook different meals that give you certain stat effects or bonus effects that you can bring into battle with you. There's also a fishing minigame that you can play that'll help serve to cook even greater and better meals for better stat buffs. You can learn new abilities in the training grounds or stop by a vendor to pick up different potions. The world is almost endless and you'll never know what you'll need these different type of items for. What I want to talk about next is actually going to be the combat, which is majority of what this video is mainly about. So, I mean, the combat isn't the worst thing in this game. It's between the combat being very repetitive and very flashy and interesting. What honestly kind of turned me off was that there was no directional attacks. Like, they don't implement any sort of like aerial attacks or ground attacks like how the Naruto Storm games do. What's actually really great about this game is that your level will scale with whatever required your level is for the next story event. So ultimately, you're not too OP at the start of the game. And something that's really important about the combat is that you can't just pull up expecting to kind of like button smash your way through the whole entire thing. You've got to sort of time your attacks and use all the tools they give you sparingly. Being reactive to what the enemy throws out at you is fairly important here as well. You can easily get caught up in a combo from the enemy if you aren't reacting to their actions accordingly. Something that didn't catch me until after the Frieza saga was making sure that I was managing my ki properly, which is something I'll talk a little more about later, like in regards of what uses your ki and what doesn't use your ki. But also during combat, being able to teleport throughout the battlefield will help you get out of the way of big incoming damage or a bigger attack. There's an additional bar in the right hand corner next to your player icon called a surge bar that will give you an additional boost of power as you are fighting and also allow you to attack cancel each move into each other. Also, your special attacks require ki, which is represented by the blue bar that's under your health. Some of your moves will use up certain amount of ki, like power rushing to the enemy or dodging attacks with either X if you're on PlayStation or A if you're on Xbox. It indeed sometimes does feel like you're rinsing and repeating some of your hitting, blocking, and special attacks, but after a while you start to catch on to how they're fighting and you start to take advantage of them. The game maintains keeping everything fresh by mixing up the 4 different special attacks and some of your normal attacks together. Alright, so let's talk about the boss fights. These aren't something that I struggled with too much during the game. Sometimes the boss would launch repetitive attacks at you that are very annoying and sometimes can eat away at your health bar. I will admit that some of the special animations of the boss battles will have a really flashy and colorful kind of like style to them, and each and every single one of them are unique and personalized to that individual character. Though they can be tough but never really too like overwhelming, more or less. Something that's actually pretty cool that I forgot to actually mention during the combat section is that some supers have like a short little cinematic animation after breaking a character's guard, and you can follow up with them and they just look so cool and they can string into each other so well, and I'm just like, dude, this feels great. This actually feels like a different type of Dragon Ball Z experience that we've never experienced before, and it's like really cool RPG style type of like gameplay. And also like being able to run into different enemies in the overworld, it's kind of like, you know, other Dragon Ball Z games you would kind of pick a stage to fight on, and like with this one being open world, like the battlefield is almost everywhere. So if you run into an enemy like at that exact same spot, like that's where you guys are fighting, that's where the battlefield is. And I think that's actually so different, and I don't think we've seen that in a Dragon Ball Z game before, so I think that's just another plus that I can add to this review for this game. Something that you can do during your downtime in between different quests or different missions is actually go to the training grounds and challenge some of those guys there to try to see how you fare with trying to unlock a new skill. Now, I will admit I've gotten my ass kicked so many times here, but honestly, being able to defeat them is so rewarding, and unlocking that new skill is even more of a bonus. Another pretty big heads up is that, honestly, I'm going to tell you right now that this is not a short game. By the time I got to the Cell Saga, I feel like I was just like, wow, this took a long time, which is great. I'm glad it's not something that you can kind of just like rush through. It's something that you can actually take your time and kind of like get to know some of the different characters in the story. What really makes this game stand out is that it goes through an immense amount of details of the characters that you play as and understanding who they are and what they're like. As the player, you firsthand get to explore how they develop during the story. When the story goes through retelling some of those important events, they clear the expectations out by a long shot for sure. To sum it up and wrap it all up, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot's retelling of the anime is the best that we've seen since Budokai Tenkaichi 3, with its outstanding flashy animations, action-filled cutscenes, and beautifully crafted open world, serves as a value to the lineup of different Dragon Ball Z games in the franchise. Showing the small details through the hidden main story is what makes the long-loving game and anime fans fall in love with a game like this. My name is 17, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.